What's up, everyone? We are set for another very exciting week in the stock market. In today's video, we're going to talk about all of the important and relevant information to know about right now. And towards the end of today's video, we have a $19.6 million trade from Friday. Yes, $19.6 million. No one else is talking about this, so make sure to stick with us all the way to the end. But Tom, what is going on in the market right now, and what do we need to know about?
Yeah, so on Friday, the S&P 500 actually started to consolidate back down just a little bit. And you can see in pre-market here, we actually started falling back down a little bit, and then we retested those lows towards the end of the day there, bouncing off that 411 support and closing there right around 412. So it was a pretty flat Friday overall. And when I go look at the heat map, Mike, I will say it was pretty negative, though. You know, we saw Amazon down 8% with those bad earnings. Apple actually rocketed back to the upside with like a bit of an earnings turnaround here. If we go check out AAPL, they were actually down from earnings the night before, and then on Friday rocketed back up to new weekly highs. So very big turnaround there on Apple. But going back to that heat map, you know, the SPY and I will say the overall market was just pretty much red. You know, there was a couple key things that went up, like Schwab, American Express, LLY, Apple. But for the most part, you can see that there was a sea of red on Friday. And looking at that SPY again here, Mike, there is a big support that I'm noticing right at 411, which I just mentioned. But I feel like 411 is going to be huge for Monday. If we end up falling under 411, I feel like we could see some more downward selling pressure, at least momentarily, maybe for a good day trade to the downside. But I'm going to be watching that area like a hawk.
Yeah, it seems like the market has kind of been running on fumes over the past couple trading days as we saw such an explosive run up over the past couple weeks. And what was really interesting about like the past couple trading days is, like Tom kind of alluded to, is, you know, we had these giant earnings from Google, Amazon, Meta, Apple, and others. In To be honest, these earnings were not that good. Like, Apple actually had their first earnings miss in like 7 years, and guess what the stock does? Explodes to the upside. So it's like, it's kind of weird in that sense. And it's like I said, it's not like the earnings season was that great anyways. It was just better than everyone feared.
Yeah, exactly. And that fear has been a pretty big thing lately, especially with inflation so high. And I know some of these companies like Apple and others have been having issues with production in China and stuff like that. So there's been some analysts saying that there could be problems with these companies. And it's good to see that they're at least still moving up in the right direction. Now, I know Apple probably missed on a few of their earnings marks, but year over year, they were probably still okay. Looking at that chart, though, Mike, it's just getting so overextended to the upside. And talking about earnings, I know last week was huge because we had Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, and a couple other big ones. I would almost argue this week might be just as big just because of the sheer amount of stocks reporting. Like, look at Monday. We have Tyson, Cummins, for all my truck guys out there, Pinterest, Activision, Take-Two Interactive. Tuesday, we have Royal Caribbean, BP, Hertz, Enphase, Chipotle. Wednesday, it's Uber, CVS, Wendy's, Dominion, Yum, Under Armour, Disney, Affirm, Robinhood, MGM. I mean, man, Mike, it's just, there's so many reports here, even on Thursday, PayPal, Toyota, I mean, Honda on Friday. It's a hell of a week for earnings. We're not seeing anything like Apple or Tesla or anything, but man, these companies are still pretty big in their own rights, especially like Disney.
Yeah, Tom, I have to ask you, out of all of these stocks for the week, which one will you be watching closest for earnings?
This is going to maybe catch some guys a little bit off guard, Mike, but I am actually going to be watching PayPal very, very closely on Thursday after close. I think that's actually a bit of an outlier that a lot of people aren't thinking of right now, and I'm really watching them. You know, they're starting to break out on the daily chart. Granted, they are overextended in the short term, but I really like this breakout of this trend line, and I feel like that PayPal has been pretty rough this year, to say the least. I feel like they have a little while or a little bit of a ways to go back up. So I'll be watching them for a nice pop, hopefully here on Thursday after close.
Sounds good. PayPal has had a wild ride over the past couple of years. It has all-time highs right around $310 a share that it made in July of 2021, and now it's all the way back down to 85. And just a couple months ago, it was all the way close to lows around $66 a share back in November. So it's been on a wild ride, to say the least. A stock I'll be watching pretty closely for earnings this week is actually Disney on Wednesday after the market closes. Disney has also been on a wild ride over the past couple years. Right now it's sitting right around $110 a share. It has recent lows around $84 a share that it made in December. And then it has all-time highs right around $203 a share that it made back in March of 2021. So I think how they report will be pretty influential to their stock overall, considering how volatile they've been. But I'm really curious to see how their Disney Plus subscriber numbers come out. I know Netflix has been doing pretty good over like the past couple of quarters, so I'd like to see Disney with a somewhat similar story.
Yeah, that was actually really nice whenever Netflix reported. I think they had more active users or monthly active users than they were expecting. So I hope that Disney can follow along, or subscribers, I should say. It was probably subscribers. Hopefully that subscriber growth is good on Disney Plus. That's going to be the main thing I'm looking at. Obviously with Disney too. Man, that is going to be a big report though, Mike, in the middle of the week. I know Disney is probably going to be the biggest report of the week, honestly, wouldn't you say? There is some other ones on here like Enphase. They're not as big as Disney, I'd say. Maybe Chipotle, Tyson. Some of these other ones might rival them as far as market cap, but I feel like overall with like the hype and everything, Disney will probably be the biggest one.
Alrighty, so Tom, going into the market this week, what's going on in the world right now that we need to know about?
Yeah, so be ready for the China stocks, guys. There is some pretty insane news with a Chinese, or a possible Chinese spy balloon. Now, China actually came out and said that this is a weather balloon, but nonetheless, this is a picture of what it looks like, Mike. So pretty much what happened is we saw a balloon come into the United States, it looks like here. I guess they first found it around like Montana, for just clarification purposes, but ended up traveling across the whole United States, Mike. It took a pretty weird path. It actually went right over my house. I could see this thing. I have multiple pictures of it, and everybody around me was freaking out, to say the least. But this is pretty insane. This weather balloon traversed the whole entire country, and then we actually shot it down over the coast of the Carolinas here. So here's a video of the fighter jet coming in. You can see it kind of enclosing here. In a second, you'll see a missile actually come off of the jet, having its own like trail here heading towards this balloon. There's the trail from the missile. And then the balloon ends up getting hit there. And you can actually see some parts of like the debris falling down a little bit, but very interesting with this balloon. And there's a lot of outliers here. A lot of questions that I have is, why did they wait till it got off of the United States over the coast to shoot it down? You know, I know it would have made some, maybe it could have hit a house or something, but you know, they could have done it over some farmland, some rural areas where there wasn't really anything going on. But I don't know, Mike, pretty crazy situation. I'm really hoping that this doesn't hurt the China stocks too much, but I'll tell you, it's not looking good for China right now. And of course, China says it's a weather balloon, but I don't know who to believe at this point.
Exactly. Like, China was trying to pull a fast one on us, and, you know, of course, they claim it's a weather balloon. I don't expect China to be like, dang, you got us. We were trying to spy on you. It's like, you know, so either way, it's just like the whole situation, it's not like a market moving news event, but what it can definitely affect are these China stocks, just like Tom was talking about. Anytime there are increased tensions between, let's say, the US and China, it's normally not good for those types of stocks. So if you look at stocks like Alibaba, which is BABA, or maybe NIO, which is NIO, or Baidu, which is BIDU, or any other China-based company, you know, be on the lookout for maybe some selling pressure this week given the increased tensions. Of course, it's like It will really depend on is like, I guess you could say, as the tensions escalate. So for example, let's say after like a week or two, the tensions don't seem like they're rising too much, then this news won't affect the market too much. But let's say this event causes increasing tensions going forward, it can definitely have a decent impact on these China stocks.
Yeah, it definitely can. And looking at these China stocks, Mike, they are honestly pretty overextended to the upside in the short term. At least a few of them, like Baidu here, has actually been exploding recently from the low to the high. Well, granted, it's not recently. It's been actually happening for like 5 or 6 months now, but it's up over 110% from the recent low to the high there. Baba is pretty similar. I know it's also up quite a bit. Let's see the number here. Baba was up around 106, 107%, maybe a little bit more, but wow, that's insane. Now they're starting to pull back. So I will definitely be watching these China stocks for a possible pullback to the downside, Mike. I feel like this news is pretty negative, to be honest. And, I know that it might not be too groundbreaking for a while. I feel like it'll start to die down after a week or so, this news. But I do feel like that for the next week, China's going to have some explaining to do. And like you said, of course, they're going to say it's a weather balloon. They would never admit that they were truly spying on us. Could you imagine that? Like they come out in the news, they're like President Xi comes out and he's like, yeah, the United States caught us. We were trying to find their nuclear sites. That would be hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is hilarious. So we'll see what happens. But back to the market overall, Tom, do we have any important events on the economic calendar?
Yeah, honestly, nothing really crazy this week. It does look like Powell will be speaking on Tuesday. This isn't going to be too big of a speech. It just says a speech right here. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, though. So really just watch out on Tuesday there in the middle of the day. We are going to see a little bit of volatility there with Powell. There's also a couple other Fed speakers there for those next couple days as well. But next week is going to be huge, guys. Next week, we have the CPI data coming out. So for this week, I'm actually kind of glad, Mike, we can take a bit of a breather from some of this economic news and just worry about the earnings this time.
True that. So Powell's speech on the 7th, February 7th, like Tom said, it's nothing crazy. It's just an economic club, so nothing too crazy. It's not like they're set to raise interest rates yet again. So the main thing to watch for going into this week are definitely the earnings that we laid out a couple minutes ago. So feel free to screenshot that if you want. But Tom, with that being said, let's take a deeper look at the SPY or S&P 500. Over the past couple weeks, and even like the past week, we saw a lot of buying pressure. What key levels do we need to keep in mind for this week?
So this week, in my opinion, one of the biggest things to watch for is going to be, at least on Monday, is going to be this 411 support. This is huge. I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the video, so watch 411. That is going to be huge. If we break below there, I think we could fall down to 410 and a lot lower than that, maybe, and even 408, and then possibly even push down towards 400 if we see a big enough sell-off come in, especially with some of these earnings. If they don't go quite as well as we're thinking, I think that could push us down even more. But that big support there is going to be at 411. The next big one I'm watching, Mike, is at 408, which was a very big high from last Friday. So I'm going to really watch that. If we end up maybe running down to 408, that might hold up as a support. So I will watch that a little bit there as well. Now, if we do start moving back up, there's a big resistance here around 417 to 418. There was actually a lot of price action there on Friday and on Thursday. We saw a lot of bounces there. So keep your eyes out for 418 to the upside. To the downside, I'm watching 411, 408, and then I'll eventually be watching a push back down to around like 404 to 400 if we keep falling. But I'm really hoping that we can hold this support, Mike, and start to move up. But some of these earnings haven't been too good recently.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I want to get into some stocks I'm specifically watching for tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. The first one is Netflix. So Netflix has had a wild ride over the past couple of years. In the past couple of months have been really, really great for Netflix. So they've seen a lot of upwards movement over the past couple of weeks. They had lows right around like 160, and now they're all the way up to like 365. So they've been pumping lately, but they're now getting to the point where they've had too much of a run up too quickly, and they're a little bit overbought. So there's some big resistance right around this 370 and 380 area, and the momentum's starting to slow, as we can see. So I would not be surprised at all if we saw Netflix, pull back a little bit down to like this 348 to like 340 range.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Netflix is definitely overextended here in the short term. And I know a couple weeks ago, Mike, whenever they reported earnings, it might even be like a month ago at this point. I remember you were actually kind of bullish on them. You said, yeah, they might have a nice earnings continuation up. And yeah, it had a very nice move up. And now it's just a little bit too high. So I'll definitely be watching these big resistances as well. I also am a big believer that this week the market's just a little bit overextended, not just with Netflix, but just with a lot of stocks in general. But one of the first ones I'm going to watch, Mike, is Palantir. And, Palantir is kind of like Netflix. It's up quite a bit recently, but I do like the way it's holding around like 840 here. If we end up holding this 840 support, I'll watch for a move back to the upside here this week. But kind of like you with Netflix, Mike, I'm not going to really be too bullish on this, but if we do hold support, I'll play it up. But if we end up moving down under like $8.30, I think that'll be a better play, possibly back off to the downside to retest like the $8 support or something like that. Again, I just think it's just a little bit too overextended this week.
Yeah, so you're basically saying like the Palantir setup, like the technicals and just like the overall setup is pretty similar to Netflix, like how just over the past couple weeks, it's just too much of a run too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Too much of a run too quickly. And then on Friday, Palantir's kind of double bottoming at this 840 level. Let's see, Netflix, they kind of have a nice support here right around like 365.50 from Friday. So I do like it in that sense, Mike, that just a little bit too overextended over the past couple of weeks, but I do still feel like it could be a good play up if the momentum continues. But again, kind of like we talk about, we're going to kind of have to go to the overall market again, because if the SPY starts ripping, then of course everything else is going to rip.
For sure. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is UVXY. So this stock has been a pretty good hedge over the past couple of days for the market. So basically whenever anyone freaks out and starts to panic, UVXY blasts to the upside. I'm not expecting necessarily anything too crazy out of this one in the short term, but I would not be surprised if it got closer to like that $6 to $6.50 level. Right now it's right around $5. So, in the event the market pulls back, I think this could be a good play to the upside just for like a quick short-term play.
Yeah, I like it too. I'll tell you, I've been eyeing up UVXY quite a bit over the past week or so, and I'm going to really watch this one for a bigger move this week. I really like it, especially with the market being a little overextended and with some of these earnings coming in a little bit worse. I know Apple kept going up after their earnings ended up actually being a little bit negative there, but I feel like this week we might see a little bit more pullback start to come in. So I agree. I think UVXY is awesome. I'm actually going to be watching JP Morgan, and I'm going to watch this one in both directions, honestly. So I really like this support recently here around 138. So during this week, if we end up falling under 138, I will look for puts on JP Morgan, but I'll be honest, I don't really think we're going to fall under 138 here. I have a weird feeling that we're going to keep moving up. And if we move up above 142, I'll watch for a nice play back to the upside, maybe to retest that high around like 143.50. But looking at that daily chart, JP Morgan is definitely overextended here, but it just seems like it has a lot of momentum. On Friday, it kept up. It started pushing back to the upside again. So I'll really be watching for that retest of highs around like 143 or 144 here over the next couple days.
Alrighty, so now it's time for the momentum plays. With the first one for tomorrow, we have Starbucks to the downside.
Good old S-Bucks. I love this one. Go ahead and make them break under 104, which is a pretty big support.
All right, with the next one, we have Bank of America to the upside.
BAC, yeah. Hopefully we can keep moving with these banks. Make them break out above 36.80.
And with the last one, we have Boeing, but we need both directions.
Yeah, Boeing. Wow, they actually had a big tumble on Friday. So if they fall under the 204 support, I'll be watching for Boeing to the downside. Now, if they start ripping back up above 210, which is kind of the center point of this range, then I'll watch for a push back up.
Sounds good. So we are watching Boeing for potential day trade to the upside tomorrow, only if it breaks above that upper level Tom listed. We are also watching it for a day trade to the downside tomorrow, only if it breaks below the level Tom listed. And then don't forget, we have Bank of America for that upside level as well, and Starbucks for that downside level. But it's now time for my favorite part of the video, and that is the big money. And today's like real big money trade of the day. There was $19.6 million put into the Etsy put option. So we'll talk more about the specifics of it in just a second. But on Friday, there was a $19.6 million trade that went into Etsy. More specifically, it's put debit spread. So the fund in this situation bought the Etsy 150 strike put options that expire on January 17th of 2025, and they shorted the Etsy 90 strike put options that expire on January 17th of 2025. This is a put debit spread for my people who don't trade options out there. Essentially, this is a bearish trade where the person behind it wants Etsy to fall. A maximum profit would be achieved if Etsy is at or below $90 on January 17th of 2025. But even if Etsy fell down to, let's say, $110, it would still be a profitable trade. They just definitely need Etsy below 150 for this trade to even have any value at all to it. Now, the way I look at it is that Etsy, they've had a really good run over the past couple months, which is awesome to see. And this is really just a trade that this uptrend will not be able to hold, and I know there's I guess you could say the economic situation right now is not the best with just everything overall. And this looks like this could be a trade where, there's just a fund that's just bearish on Etsy and it thinks that we're going to see lower lows coming, or even just a retest of lows. So overall, I don't think this is a bad trade at all. But one thing that is crucial to emphasize is that this trade has some time. Like this trade expires in January of 2025.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is actually a lot of time, Mike. That's more time than most of the trades that we're looking at here. So it's almost like 2 years pretty much. Pretty much, you're going to have to hold this one for a little while, but that is a lot of money put in there, Mike. Now, given that it is a longer term play, out to 2025, I want to clarify this maybe for a couple people who might be confused. That doesn't mean, for example, that they have to hold this put debit spread all the way out to 2025, right? Like if we get a good rejection here and we start to fall back down a little bit, they could close this a little early and, take some profits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very glad you brought that up. 100%.
Yeah, because it might it might play out a little bit before it happens, but them having time obviously just protects them even more. And, for a lot of our day traders out there, Mike, everybody wants to go with like 0 days to expiration or like 1 DTE. People want to get into those high percentage type of plays that are really close to expiring. Whereas I've noticed the smart money, even if it's a play that might be only a couple months long or something, they usually get like a lot of extra time. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, 100%. Like that's why I always say like it doesn't hurt to buy more time, especially in the options market.
Yeah, exactly. So just watch it. That's a big resistance though, around 150 to 154. I noticed that this area that Etsy's getting to has seen rejection time and time again. So really watch this area. I think it's going to be a big area of resistance. And if we start to see that rejection, you don't really even have to play this exact play if you don't want to. You could just maybe get into the one long side, like maybe the 150 puts or something like that if you wanted to be a little bit more risky with it. Obviously, I hope you guys aren't putting $19 million into it. But if we do see this rejection off resistance, I think it could be a pretty good play over the next few weeks and even the next few months, honestly.
Yeah, like the way I look at this whole situation is like, let's say you have a nice portfolio of a bunch of different stocks and, maybe you're someone who's like, what? I really like the run up that we've seen over the past couple weeks and months, but I'm not too, I guess you could say, comfortable with it, right? You think there's a chance that we might retest lows. I think this is where a trade like this comes into play where, you could risk a relatively small amount to make a relatively large amount and you have a lot of time and you have the smart money on your side. So it's like, just to say it again, it's like if you have a bunch of long stocks and you have a lot of long exposure, I don't think a trade like this is bad. Now, if this is like the only trade you plan on holding, then I do see a problem with that because it's just, I don't know, it's pretty risky.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. If that's the only trade you're getting into, it would be a little bit rough, but it would be a good hedge type play, like you said. So we'll have to see how it plays out. And I've noticed that over the past couple of weeks, there's just so many stocks, whether it's Etsy or Apple or what have you, like so many stocks are ripping up lately. I'm just waiting for a bit of a pullback and just almost like the overall market.
Yeah, exactly. So we will see. But Tom, either way, I think this week will still be pretty exciting because of all the big earnings and, important levels that we have coming up in the market. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to cover?
Yeah, I did want to cover one final thing. I just wanted to say that these AI stocks, guys, are going insane right now. Just keep them on the radar. Like the stock AI itself, gosh, it was up 18% Friday, and it's just been having insane moves last week. And look at this daily chart of AI. I'm not necessarily saying to like buy this and hold it or anything like that, but just watch it for volatility. It was insanely volatile last week, and I feel like some of these AI stocks might be volatile again here this week. So just keep it on the radar. Figured I'd mention it here as my, final play slash, I guess I don't even know what I'd call this one, Mike. I would just keep it on the radar, honestly. If we do see that big move again, though, it could be a good one to catch.
Yeah, these artificial intelligence stocks are running up like in a more powerful way than basically anything else. AI itself, ticker symbol AI, has been like the main stock running up. Basically ever since December 28th, this stock went from $10.16 all the way up to highs of $28.48, which it made on Friday, February 3rd. So it's booming to the upside right now. And if you're just getting into it now, I think that's a stupid idea. I think you lost a lot of the potential reward there. That's not to say it can't go up higher, but it's just like, is it like, do you really want to be buying a stock that basically 3x'd, just over the course of a couple weeks? Probably not, right? But where I do think there is still a lot of opportunity with this one is just playing those intraday moves. If you look at ticker symbol AI on an intraday chart, whether it's a 15-minute chart, the 5-minute chart, whatever, you'll see that these moves are pretty powerful and the stock trends big time intraday. So, maybe you see it getting rejected off resistance, or maybe you see it trying to make a new high. I do think there is opportunity just playing it like intraday just for very short-term plays.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I'm going to be watching it for, especially when it goes up 18% like it did on Friday. I'm sure some of those options, I saw some guys posting some options last week that were up like 3,000+%. So hopefully it keeps having this nice momentum. I will say, though, just be careful. It is getting very, very overextended in the short term, but I figured I'd mention it because I know that these stocks had a lot of hype last week, and it did kind of come out of nowhere, didn't it, Mike? Like there wasn't really anything that too crazy that caused this, was there?
I mean, it was really just a lot of hype all at once. Like C3 AI, which is ticker symbol AI, had some decent news come out, which is good. And, I really just think the overall thing was, the combination of good news, but also the combination of ChatGPT going so crazy. And at the same time, the market overall just ripping to the upside. So I think it was just like a bunch of things all at once.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really hoping that this SPY can hold up here this week and we can, maybe have as good of a week this week as we did last week. I will say it was pretty explosive, and hey, let's kill it this week, guys. If we have any profits, posting up in the profits channel on Discord, talking about that, Mike. Our bot plays were actually on fire here, and even last week we had a lot of amazing plays come out. Like Google on Thursday went up like 129%. FedEx was up 100%. So the bot was actually on fire last week.
Absolutely. So if you guys are into short-term trading, check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. We have a bunch of awesome short-term trading bots that you will not find anywhere else. Last week, the hybrid bot play averaged a 58.9% pop all within the same day, and SniperBot absolutely crushed it as well. The alerts come out multiple times throughout the day with a lot of great short-term option setups. Of course, not every single alert wins. There's no strategy, no software out there that wins 100% of the time, but our bots are damn good and you won't find them anywhere else. So definitely check out that first link in the description, in the comments down below. You have to try it at least for a month. So definitely check it out. You'll also save around $41 off your first month automatically with a coupon code that is automatically applied at checkout. And you'll even get access to these big money, $19.6 million options trades on the same day they are made before the market closes if you decide to sign up. So definitely check it out. It's that first link in the description and the comments down below. Besides that, let's have an amazing week.